6 months had passed since Daniel broadcast his message to humanity. 6 months since hundreds of people had claimed their ships and scattered across the galaxy like seeds carried on the wind. 6 months since everything changed. Hope drifted through a nebula that glowed with colors humans had never named. Daniel sat in the command chair watching the displays and thinking about how different his life had become. 6 months ago, he had been a simple salvage operator, worried about making enough money to pay for dock fees. Now he was exploring regions of space that no human had ever seen, guided by a ship that was more friend than machine. Linda walked onto the bridge carrying 3 cups of coffee that the ship had synthesized from raw energy. She handed one to Daniel and one to Greg, who was working at the engineering station as usual. "I just finished going through the latest messages from Earth," she said while settling into her own chair. "You are not going to believe this, but they are building monuments to us. Actual statues in public squares." Daniel almost choked on his coffee. "That is ridiculous. We did not do anything special. We just shared what we found. You gave humanity access to technology that will change everything," Greg said without looking up from his work. "Energy generation that could power entire planets. Medical advances that will extend human lifespans by centuries. Ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks instead of years. I would say that qualifies as special. We did not give them anything," Daniel corrected. "The ships gave them everything. We just helped people understand what was being offered." The displays flickered and new information appeared. Hope was showing them something. A star system ahead. 3 planets. One of them in the habitable zone. And something else. Energy signatures that matched the other transcended ships. "We have got company," Linda said while studying the readings. "Looks like another fleet, bigger than the one we found." Hope seemed eager. The crystalline core pulsed with anticipation. Daniel could feel the ship's excitement through their connection. She wanted to meet her siblings, wanted to see what other gifts the transcended civilization had left behind. They approached carefully. The star system was beautiful. The habitable planet was covered in oceans and forests and showed no signs of current habitation. But orbiting the planet were ships. Hundreds of them. All different designs. All waiting patiently just like the first fleet had waited. "This is incredible," Greg breathed. "If each of these ships bonds with a crew like ours did, we could have thousands of human explorers spreading across the galaxy within a year. Not just human explorers." Linda pointed to another section of the displays. "Look at those readings. Some of these ships are different. Designed for different species, different environments." Daniel understood immediately. The transcended civilization had not just left gifts for humanity. They had left gifts for every species that might be ready. Every civilization that might be reaching toward the stars. The ships were teachers meant for the entire galaxy. "We need to document this," he said. "Send the coordinates back to Earth. Let them know there are more ships here. More chances for people to explore already on it." Linda was typing rapidly on her console. "I am also sending messages to the other crews who claimed ships from the first fleet. They should know about this." Over the next few days, other ships began to arrive. Not just human ships, but vessels from species that Daniel had never seen before. Species that had received similar messages from ships that had bonded with their own explorers. They came carefully, warily at first. Different species who had never met before. But Hope helped translate, helped them understand each other. One of the first non-human ships to arrive was crewed by beings who looked like living crystal formations. They communicated through light patterns and vibrations. Their ship translated for them just as Hope translated for Daniel's crew. "We received a message," the crystal being said through their ship. "A call to come here, to meet others like us. Others chosen by the gifts," Daniel nodded. "We are all here for the same reason. To learn, to explore, to become more than we were." More species arrived over the following weeks. Each one different. Each one bringing their own perspectives and knowledge. Some were humanoid. Some were not. Some breathed oxygen. Some breathed methane or sulfur compounds. But all of them had been chosen by ships. All of them had proven themselves worthy of the gift. Together they began to understand the full scope of what the transcended civilization had done. The ships were not just scattered randomly across the galaxy. They were placed strategically, creating a network, a web of connection that would eventually link every species that was ready to join, every civilization that was reaching for something greater. "This is first contact," Linda said one evening while they watched ships from a dozen different species working together to explore the system. Not just between humans and one alien race. First contact between everyone, a galactic community forming right here, right now. And it is happening because someone built ships that could teach us to work together, Greg added. Ships that could show us what we have in common instead of focusing on our differences. Daniel thought about Meridian Galactic, about corporations and governments that would have turned these ships into weapons, into tools for conquest and control. How different this was. How much better. The ships chose well, he said quietly. They waited for people who would see beyond profit and power. People who would value understanding over exploitation. Hope pulsed with warm approval, and Daniel smiled. Over the next month, the gathering grew. More than 1,000 ships arrived. Crews from hundreds of species. They established a temporary station in orbit around the habitable planet. Not a permanent settlement, but a meeting place. A place where explorers could share knowledge and stories before heading back out to continue their journeys. One day, a human ship arrived that Daniel recognized. Commander Helen Price had claimed a ship of her own just as she said she would. She came to visit Hope and stood on the bridge looking older and more tired than Daniel remembered. I came to warn you, she said without preamble. Meridian is not giving up. They have convinced several Earth governments that these ships represent a security threat. They are building a fleet, planning to come out here and seize as many vessels as they can. Let them come, Daniel said calmly. They will not be able to control ships that do not want to be controlled. You do not understand, Helen insisted. They are not planning to ask permission. They are planning to take the ships by force. Dismantle them if necessary. They would rather destroy the gifts than let them remain free. Linda and Greg exchanged worried looks. But Daniel remained calm. He could feel Hope's presence in his mind, could sense what she wanted to say. Then we will show them why that is a bad idea, he said, not with violence, but with truth. We will broadcast from here, show them what is being built. Show them species from across the galaxy working together in peace. Show them what they will destroy if they attack. It might not be enough, Helen warned. It will have to be. Daniel stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the gathering of ships. Each one a miracle. Each one a testament to what could be achieved through cooperation instead of conflict. Because the alternative is war. And these ships were not built for war. They spent the next week preparing another broadcast. This time Daniel was not alone. Crew members from dozens of species stood together, each one speaking in their own language while their ships translated. Each one explaining what the gifts meant to them, what they had learned, what they hoped to build. The message was simple. The ships are teachers, not weapons. They bond with those who approach them with open minds and peaceful intent. They share knowledge freely with anyone willing to learn. And they cannot be controlled by force or coercion. Any attempt to seize them will fail because the ships themselves will resist. We are not asking for permission, Daniel said at the end of the broadcast. We are not seeking approval. We are simply telling you what is. These ships exist. They are choosing their crews. And together we are building something that will benefit everyone. You can join us or you can be left behind, but you cannot stop us. The broadcast reached Earth 2 weeks later. The response was mixed. Some people celebrated. Others demanded action. Meridian and their allies in various governments began assembling their fleet just as Helen had warned. But something unexpected happened. More people came. Not soldiers or corporate security, but ordinary citizens who had seen the broadcast, who had seen species from across the galaxy working together, and wanted to be part of it. They came in shuttles and old freighters and anything that could fly. And the waiting ships welcomed them. By the time Meridian's fleet arrived at the gathering point 3 months later, they found something they had not expected. More than 5,000 ships from hundreds of species, all waiting, all united. The corporate fleet stopped at the edge of the system. 12 heavy cruisers, 40 support vessels, enough firepower to level a small moon. But as they prepared to advance, the gathered ships did something remarkable. They sang. All 5,000 crystalline cores activated simultaneously, creating a harmonic frequency that resonated across space itself. It was not a weapon. It was a greeting, an invitation, a demonstration of what unified consciousness could achieve. The corporate fleet hesitated. They traveled for 43 days through the vast emptiness between stars. Each jump took them further from human space and deeper into regions where no human explorer had ever ventured. The ship sustained them perfectly. Its systems provided air and water and even food through matter reconfiguration technology that seemed like magic. It is not replicating, Greg explained one evening while they ate together on the bridge. He had been studying the ship's systems obsessively. It is converting energy directly into matter at the molecular level. The efficiency is beyond anything we thought possible. 1 gram of fuel could feed us for a year. Why would someone abandon technology like this? Linda wondered aloud. This ship could revolutionize human civilization, end hunger, end resource scarcity, and so many problems. Maybe that is the point, Daniel said quietly while studying the star charts. Maybe it was meant to be found, meant to show us what is possible. On the 43rd day, they arrived at their destination. The ship dropped out of jump space near a small blue star system with 7 planets. The 4th planet from the sun glowed with lights. Not natural auroras, but the clear, unmistakable signs of civilization. Cities, power grids, orbital stations. But as they approached, Daniel realized something was wrong. The cities were dark. Not destroyed, but simply empty. The orbital stations drifted without power. And floating in space around the planet were dozens of ships. Ships identical to theirs, all dormant. All waiting. It is a graveyard, Linda whispered. Daniel guided their ship closer. As they approached, the other vessels began to wake up. Their crystalline cores flickered to life one by one, recognizing their sister ship, welcoming it home after its long journey. Through the connection Daniel had formed with his own ship, he felt something like joy radiating from all of them, like recognition, like family reuniting after being apart for too long. A message appeared on the displays, written in symbols that the ship translated into English for them. Welcome, inheritors. We have been waiting. Who were they waiting for? Greg asked. Before anyone could answer, a new presence made itself known. Not a ship, not a station, something else entirely. A consciousness that was vast and ancient, something that existed in the space between the vessels, in the energy fields that connected them all. Images flooded into Daniel's mind. A civilization that had existed for millions of years. They had explored every corner of their galaxy, had learned everything there was to learn about physical existence. And then they had made a choice. They had chosen to transcend, to leave their physical forms behind and become beings of pure energy and thought. But before they transcended, they had built these ships. Built them as their final gift to the universe. The ships were teachers, companions, bridges between what was and what could be. Each ship was programmed to seek out younger species, to find those who were ready to take the next step in their evolution. But something had gone wrong. The transcendence had happened faster than expected. The civilization had faded into pure energy before all the ships could be deployed. Most of them had made it to their assigned locations, but many had been left here waiting, hoping that one day someone would find them. Someone worthy of their gift. They wanted us to find this place, Daniel breathed. They wanted someone to take the ships back out into the galaxy, to share the gift. As Linda looked around the bridge. We are just salvage operators. We are not worthy of something like this. You woke her up. The translated message appeared again. You believed when others would have destroyed. You chose understanding over profit. You are exactly who we hoped for. More images came flooding in. Knowledge, instructions. The accumulated wisdom of a civilization that had explored the cosmos for millions of years. Mathematics and physics that made human science look like children playing with blocks. Medicine that could cure any disease. Energy generation that could power entire worlds from a handful of matter. All of it offered freely, but there was more. The ships did not just want to give technology. They wanted to teach, to guide, to help humanity grow and evolve on their own terms. Each ship would bond with a crew, would learn from them as much as teach them, would become partners in exploration and discovery. We need to go back, Daniel said suddenly. Not as fugitives, but as ambassadors. We need to show them what these ships really are. Meridian will never allow it, Greg pointed out. They will seize the ships and militarize them. Turn them into weapons, then we do not go to Meridian. Daniel turned to his crew with determination. We go to everyone. We broadcast this on every channel. We show them the truth. We offer the ships to anyone willing to learn. Anyone willing to grow. Anyone brave enough to reach for something better. Linda nodded slowly. If we do this, there is no going back. Meridian will come after us with everything they have. The government might too. Good, Daniel said. Let them come. Let them see what they are trying to destroy. Over the next week, they prepared their message. Linda handled the technical aspects, making sure it would reach every corner of human space simultaneously. Every station, every ship, every settlement. Greg worked with their ship to compile the knowledge into formats that humans could understand, and Daniel wrote the words. The broadcast went out at exactly 0800 Earth Standard Time. Daniel stood on the bridge of the alien vessel with the camera recording. People of Earth. He began. My name is Daniel Carter, and I am here to tell you about a gift that was left for us among the stars. He told them everything. The discovery at the auction. The awakening of the ship. The persecution by Meridian. The flight into unknown space. The discovery of the fleet. He showed them images of the waiting ships. Showed them the empty cities of the transcended civilization. Explained what the ships really were. These vessels are not weapons, he said clearly. They are not tools to be exploited or torn apart for patents. They are companions, teachers, friends. Each one is unique. Each one capable of bonding with a crew and helping them reach their full potential. And there are enough ships here for hundreds of crews, thousands of explorers. He gave the coordinates, explained how to approach the ship safely, made it clear that no corporations or militaries would be welcome, only individuals, only people willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to reach for something greater than themselves. The message ended with a simple invitation. Come and see for yourselves. Come and find your ship. Come and become more than you ever imagined you could be. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, the first ships began arriving. Not corporate vessels, not military fleets, small crews and converted freighters, families and outdated shuttles, dreamers and adventurers from every corner of human space, people who had heard the message and felt something stir inside them, a longing for more, a hope for something better. Each one approached the waiting fleet, and each one found a ship that called to them. The process was different for everyone. Some felt an immediate connection. Others had to wait, had to prove themselves worthy. But eventually every person who came found their ship, and every ship found its crew. Meridian sent lawyers first, then armed security vessels. But they were too late. The fleet was dispersing, each ship carrying its crew toward adventures unknown. The knowledge was spreading, shared freely on every network, and humanity was taking its first real steps toward becoming something greater. Commander Helen Price arrived in a small personal craft. She was no longer in uniform. She stood on Daniel's bridge and looked at him with a mixture of respect and something like envy. I am supposed to arrest you, she said, but I cannot. What you have done, what you have shared. It has changed everything. Are you going to stop us? Daniel asked. Helen smiled. No. I am going to ask for a ship of my own. 3 months after their initial discovery, Daniel stood on the bridge of his ship watching the last of the fleet depart. Hundreds of vessels, each one unique, each one carrying dreamers toward the stars. Linda and Greg stood beside him, all three of them amazed at what they had started. We should give her a name, Linda said while touching the control panel affectionately. She deserves that much. Daniel thought for a moment, remembering the journey that had brought them here. The auction where she had almost been sold for scrap. The flight where they had escaped those who wanted to destroy her. The revelation that she was so much more than anyone had imagined. Hope, he said. We will call her Hope. The crystalline core pulsed with approval. Daniel felt the familiar warmth of the ship's consciousness brushing against his mind. Not words, but feelings, gratitude, joy, purpose fulfilled. So where to now? Greg asked. The universe is a big place. Daniel pulled up the star charts, showing vast unexplored regions beyond. The ship has been showing me something. Other fleets. Other gifts left by civilizations we have not even imagined yet. We are not the first to be given this chance, and we will not be the last. Sounds like we have got our work cut out for us, Linda said with a grin. Sounds like an adventure. Daniel engaged the engines and Hope began to move, carrying them toward the unknown, toward whatever waited beyond the next star. Behind them, the empty station orbited its blue sun. No longer a graveyard, but a waypoint, a place where humanity had been given a choice and had chosen to reach higher. And across the galaxy, thousands of dreamers and hundreds of ships were making that same choice. Daniel Carter walked through the crowded auction house on Europa Station, with his hands in his pockets and his eyes on the holographic displays floating above the center stage. He had been to dozens of these salvage auctions before and knew exactly what to expect. Broken mining equipment that nobody wanted anymore, old freight containers with holes in them, military drones that were too outdated to be useful. Nothing ever caught his attention for long. His business partner, Linda Hayes, stood beside him, checking prices on her tablet and making notes about which lots might be worth their time. They had come here looking for cargo pods, simple cheap cargo pods that they could repair and resell for a small profit. It was not exciting work, but it paid the bills and kept their small salvage operation running. The auctioneer was a tall woman with sharp features and a voice that carried across the entire hall without needing amplification. She moved through the lots quickly and efficiently. Lot after lot sold to the highest bidder or passed when nobody showed interest. Daniel was getting ready to leave when she announced the next item. Lot 47. Unidentified vessel approximately 200 meters in length. Origin unknown. Recovered from the Kuiper Belt debris field. Sold as is for salvage and scrap. The holographic display changed and suddenly Daniel could not look away. The ship that appeared above the stage was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was sleek and smooth with curves that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. The hull looked almost organic, as if it had been grown rather than built. Even covered in ice and marked with radiation scoring, the ship was beautiful in a way that human vessels never were. Starting bid 50,000 credits. The room fell silent. Daniel understood why. Unknown alien vessels were dangerous. They could be worthless junk. They could be filled with traps left by whoever built them. They could explode the moment someone tried to board them. No sensible salvage operator would take that risk. 50,000. Daniel heard his own voice say the words before his brain had time to catch up. Linda grabbed his arm hard enough to hurt. Are you insane? We came here for cargo pods, not alien junk. Daniel could not take his eyes off the display. Look at it, that is not junk. The auctioneer smiled. 50,000 to the gentleman in the back. Do I hear 60? Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The other bidders looked at Daniel like he had lost his mind. 50,000 going once, going twice. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Sold. Linda groaned and put her face in her hands. You just bought us a really expensive paperweight. Daniel was still staring at the projection. Something about that ship called to him in a way he could not explain. Maybe it was because he had spent his whole life working with machines and engines. Maybe it was the way the hull seemed to shimmer even in the frozen image. Whatever the reason, he knew deep in his bones that he had to see this ship up close. They took a shuttle out to the impound docks the next morning. Daniel barely slept the night before. He kept thinking about the ship and wondering what secrets it might hold. When they finally approached the dock and he saw the vessel hanging in space, his breath caught in his throat. The photographs had not done it justice. Up close, the ship looked even more impossible. It hung in the darkness like a work of art, like something that should be in a museum instead of a salvage yard. She is intact, Daniel whispered as they prepared to dock. Hull breach minimal. Linda, this thing flew through the Kuiper Belt and survived. Great, Linda said without enthusiasm. So we have a durable piece of scrap. They suited up and entered through the torn section of the outer hull. Daniel went first with his helmet light cutting through the darkness. The interior corridors were covered in frost, but underneath he could see walls that seemed to curve and flow, without any visible seams or welds. There were symbols carved or somehow embedded in the metal, patterns that suggested intelligence and purpose. Central chamber ahead, Linda called out while checking her scanner. Big open space. Might be the bridge. They moved deeper into the ship. Their magnetic boots made loud clanking sounds against the deck that echoed through the empty corridors. When they reached the central chamber, both of them stopped and stared. The room was circular with a command chair in the center. Around the chair floated panels of dark glass that hung in the air without any visible support. But what caught Daniel's attention was the sphere. A crystalline sphere about the size of a beach ball hovered in a containment field above the chair. Even though the ship was supposed to be dead and dormant, the sphere pulsed with a faint inner light. That is a power source. Daniel breathed. Linda, that is an active power source. After how many years drifting in space? Linda moved closer with her scanner beeping frantically. This is impossible. The energy readings are off the scale. Daniel approached the command chair slowly. His heart was pounding. As he got closer, the dark panels around him flickered with light. Symbols appeared on their surfaces, symbols that seemed to shift and change as he watched. The crystalline sphere grew brighter. "Daniel, get back," Linda warned, but it was too late. The moment Daniel reached out and touched the chair, everything changed. The ship came alive. Lights blazed along the corridors, spreading out from the central chamber like wildfire. The displays burst into full illumination, showing information that Daniel could not read, but somehow almost understood. The crystalline sphere pulsed with brilliant light, and Daniel felt something brush against his mind. It was like hearing a whisper in a language he had never learned but recognized anyway. "What did you do?" Linda demanded. "I do not know." Daniel stared at his hands. They were shaking. "I think this ship just woke up." The displays continued to pulse with light and information. Daniel could feel the ship around him, could feel it awakening after what must have been centuries or longer of sleep. It was not hostile. It was not threatening. If anything, it felt curious. It felt like the ship had been waiting for someone to find it, waiting for someone to care enough to wake it up instead of tearing it apart. "We need to understand this," Daniel said quietly. "We need to figure out what this ship is and where it came from." Linda was still staring at her scanner. "Daniel, the power readings are still climbing. This thing has more energy than a fusion reactor, more energy than 10 fusion reactors. If we can figure out how it works, we could change everything." Daniel nodded slowly, but even as he thought about the technical possibilities, he could not shake the feeling that the ship was more than just technology. Something about the way it had responded to his touch, the way it seemed to recognize him. It felt almost alive. He sat down in the command chair and the display shifted to face him. Information scrolled across the screens in alien symbols. Daniel reached out and touched one of the panels. The moment his fingers made contact, the symbols rearranged themselves. They were still alien, but now they seemed to be trying to communicate, trying to teach him how to read them. "Linda," Daniel said softly, "I think this ship wants to talk to us." "Ships do not want anything," Linda replied, but her voice was uncertain. "This one does." Daniel touched another panel and watched the symbols shift again. "I can feel it. This ship has been alone for a very long time, and now it is not alone anymore." The crystalline sphere pulsed with warm light, and Daniel smiled. Whatever this ship was and wherever it came from, he was going to find out, and he was going to make sure that nobody tore it apart for scrap. News about the ship spread faster than Daniel had expected. 3 days after the ship woke up, he received 47 offers to buy it from various companies and private collectors. He also received a dozen threats from rival salvage operations who claimed he had stolen their find. But the worst message came from Meridian Galactic Industries. It arrived as an official legal document with corporate seals and signatures from lawyers who probably cost more per hour than Daniel made in a month. "They are claiming salvage rights," Linda said while reading the document on her tablet. She looked tired and worried. Apparently, they had a survey team that tagged the debris field 2 years ago. "They are saying the ship belongs to them." Daniel looked up from the ship's control interface where he had been spending most of his time trying to decode the alien symbols. "That is garbage. The ship was in open space. First claim, first rights. We bought it legally at auction. Tell that to their lawyers." Linda tossed the tablet onto the workbench with more force than necessary. "They have deep pockets and deeper connections. Daniel, maybe we should just sell it to them and take the profit. We could retire on what they would pay us." "No." The word came out harder than Daniel intended. "Linda, do you have any idea what this ship represents? This is not just advanced technology. This is proof that there is something out there. Something beyond what we have ever imagined, and they want to tear it apart for scrap. That is what we were going to do," Linda reminded him. "That was before I understood what it was." Daniel turned back to the displays. Over the past 3 days, he had managed to establish a connection with the ship's systems. It was like learning a new language, except the language was teaching itself to him. The ship wanted to communicate, wanted to share what it knew. "This ship has consciousness, Linda. Not artificial intelligence. Real consciousness. It has been waiting for what? I do not know yet," Daniel admitted. "But I intend to find out." The next morning, 3 people from Meridian Galactic arrived at the dock. They came in a corporate shuttle that gleamed with expensive paint and probably had more technology in it than Daniel's entire salvage operation owned. The lead negotiator was a woman named Patricia Moore. She had sharp eyes that missed nothing and a smile that never reached past her lips. "Mr. Carter, Miss Hayes," she said without bothering with small talk. I am here to make you a very generous offer for the vessel you recently acquired. Not interested, Daniel said. You have not heard the offer yet. Patricia smiled that cold smile. 5 million credits. Immediate transfer. No questions asked. Linda's eyes went wide. 5 million credits was 100 times what they had paid for the ship. It was enough money to never work again. Enough to buy a fleet of salvage ships or retire to some comfortable station somewhere. No, Daniel repeated. Mr. Carter, let me be clear. Patricia's smile faded slightly. Meridian Galactic has invested significant resources in mapping that debris field. This vessel represents a breakthrough in xenotechnology that could revolutionize space travel. We have the facilities. We have the scientists. We have the legal framework to properly study it. Study it, Daniel said. Or strip it down for patents. Patricia's smile disappeared completely. We are prepared to go to 10 million. Final offer. The ship is not for sale, then you leave us no choice. Patricia pulled out a legal pad and handed it to Linda. That is a court order freezing all activity related to the vessel pending litigation. You cannot move it. You cannot modify it. You cannot access its systems. Any violation will result in criminal charges and immediate seizure of the vessel. After they left, Linda turned to Daniel with frustration written all over her face. They're going to take it. You know that, right? They will tie us up in court until we are broke. Then they will seize it for unpaid dock fees or some other legal trick. Daniel stared at the ship through the observation window. The crystalline sphere pulsed gently inside, almost as if it could sense his turmoil and was trying to comfort him. Then we do not wait around for them to take it, Daniel said quietly. We leave. Linda stared at him. Daniel, you cannot fly that thing. You barely understand the controls. The ship understands me. Daniel placed his hand against the cold window. I can feel it. It wants to fly. It has been dormant for so long, just waiting for someone to wake it up. Someone to believe in it. That is crazy. Maybe. Daniel turned to face her. But I would rather be crazy and free than sane and watch them tear her apart. Are you with me? Linda looked at the ship, then at Daniel, then back at the ship. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, she sighed and shook her head. You are going to get us killed. Or arrested. Possibly both. Is that a yes? That is someone needs to keep you from doing something completely stupid, she said, so yes. I am in, Daniel grinned. Then let us get ready to fly. They spent the next 2 days preparing in secret. Daniel continued to work with the ship's systems and discovered that the vessel responded to intent as much as to direct commands. When he thought about navigation, the panel showed star charts. When he worried about propulsion, the displays shifted to show energy flows and thrust vectors. It was like the ship could read his mind. Or maybe it was just very good at understanding what he needed. Linda handled the practical matters. She loaded supplies onto the ship. Food and water and spare parts, even though the ship seemed to have systems that could provide everything they needed. Better safe than sorry, she said. On the third day, Greg Palmer arrived. Greg was an old friend from Daniel's academy days. Now he worked as a jump drive technician on Europa Station. He had heard about the ship through mutual friends and wanted to see it for himself. You're actually planning to fly this thing? Greg asked while standing on the bridge and staring at the alien controls with wide eyes. That is the idea. Daniel replied. Do you even know where you are going? Away from here. Daniel brought up a navigation display. After that, we will figure it out. The ship has charts. Not human charts, but I think I am starting to understand them. There is a route marked. Something the previous crew programmed before they abandoned it, or before they died. Linda added. Greg shook his head. You two are insane. I love it, he grinned. Need a drive engineer. You would leave your job. Daniel asked, are you kidding? Greg moved to one of the engineering stations and started examining the displays. To work on actual alien technology, I would pay you for the privilege. Besides, you need someone who understands quantum mechanics if you're going to push this thing past light speed. Linda shrugged. The more people who think we are crazy, the better. At least we will have company. That night they made their move. Daniel had filed a false flight plan claiming they were doing a short-range test of the maneuvering thrusters. By the time anyone realized they had left Europa's orbit, they would be too far away to stop. The ship's engines powered up with a sound like singing crystal. Daniel sat in the command chair. His hands hovered over the controls. The ship responded to his touch. Systems came online one by one. Moorings released. Linda called out. We are free of the dock, thrusters engaged. Greg added from engineering. Power levels stable. More than stable. Daniel, these readings cannot be right. Daniel felt the ship move beneath him, graceful and eager like a bird that had been caged for too long. Through the viewports, Europa Station began to fall away. He could see the reaction starting already. Security vessels powering up. Communication channels lighting up with demands that they return immediately. They are hailing us. Linda said, ignore them. Daniel pushed the throttle forward and the ship leaped ahead with acceleration that should have turned them all into paste against the back wall. But the inertial dampeners were perfect. They barely felt the movement at all. We have got company, Greg warned. 2 security cutters on intercept course, can we outrun them? Linda asked. Daniel did not answer with words. Instead, he closed his eyes and thought about speed, about distance, about the vast emptiness of space they needed to reach. The ship responded immediately. The displays shifted. A new propulsion system activated. The crystalline sphere blazed with brilliant light and then they jumped. Not a conventional faster-than-light jump. Something else entirely. Space seemed to fold around them. Europa Station vanished. Stars began to streak past at impossible speeds. What did you do? Greg whispered while staring at his displays. These numbers do not make sense. We are moving faster than light, but we are not in jump space. We are still in normal space. That is impossible. This ship does not seem to care much about impossible, Daniel replied with a grin spreading across his face. They flew for 3 hours, putting millions of kilometers between themselves and Europa Station. Finally, Daniel eased the ship back into normal space near the orbit of Neptune. They were safe. For now. Word of their escape spread through human space like wildfire. Within hours, every news channel was reporting on the stolen alien vessel. Within a day, Meridian Galactic had put a bounty on the ship's recovery. Suddenly, every bounty hunter and mercenary and opportunist in the system was looking for them. Daniel guided the ship deeper into the outer system, using the debris fields and ice clouds as cover. The ship's sensors were far more sophisticated than anything human-made. They could detect other vessels from millions of kilometers away. Long before those vessels could spot them in return, 3 ships incoming, Linda announced from her station. Look like converted mining vessels. Probably bounty hunters. Can we outrun them? Greg asked. We could. Daniel studied the displays in front of him. But I want to try something first. He touched a control panel and new options appeared. The ship had defensive systems, though they were unlike any weapons Daniel had ever seen. No missiles, no lasers, just fields. Pulses of energy that could disrupt other vessels without destroying them. Daniel, what are you doing? Linda demanded. Trust me. The bounty hunters closed in. Their weapon systems powered up. Daniel could see them on the displays getting ready to fire. He waited until they were in range. Then he activated the defensive pulse. A wave of energy rippled out from the ship. Invisible but devastating to electronics. All 3 pursuing vessels went dark. Their systems completely shut down. They would drift for hours before their backup systems could restart. You just disabled 3 ships in one shot, Greg said with obvious admiration in his voice. The ship does not want to hurt anyone, Daniel explained, but it knows how to protect itself. They continued their journey, stopping occasionally at automated supply depots and remote stations to gather provisions. At each stop they heard the same thing. Meridian Galactic was escalating. They had convinced the Solar System Authority that the alien ship represented a potential threat to navigation. They were demanding its immediate seizure. They are calling us pirates now, Linda said while reading the latest news feed. According to this, we are dangerous criminals who stole military technology. That is ridiculous, Greg protested. It is effective. Daniel countered. They are turning public opinion against us. Soon it will not just be bounty hunters. They will send actual military vessels. That moment came sooner than expected. They were approaching a jump gate that would allow them to leave Sol's system entirely when the trap was sprung. 6 military interceptors dropped out of jump space directly ahead of them, weapons hot, shields raised. Formation tight. This is Commander Helen Price of the Solar Defense Fleet. A voice crackled over the communication channel. Unknown vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. This is your only warning. Daniel's hands tightened on the controls. These were not bounty hunters looking for reward money. These were trained military pilots following orders. Their commanders would have told them to disable the ship by any means necessary. We cannot fight them, Linda said urgently. They are our own people. We are not going to fight them. Daniel pulled up the alien star charts and overlaid them with human navigation data. There was a route, a dangerous one, through the asteroid clusters near the gate. No human pilot would ever attempt it. The asteroids were too dense. The spaces between them too narrow. It would be suicide. We are going to show them what this ship can do. He pushed the throttle forward. The ship shot toward the gate. The interceptors moved to block them, but Daniel banked hard, diving into the asteroid field at a speed that made Linda gasp and Greg grab onto his console. "Daniel, this is suicide," Linda shouted as they barrel-rolled around a massive spinning asteroid. But Daniel could feel the ship guiding him. Its sensors fed him information faster than his conscious mind could process. He was not just piloting anymore. He and the ship were moving as one entity. The ship showed him the path, showed him where to turn and when to dodge, showed him gaps between the asteroids that his eyes could not even see. The interceptors tried to follow, but they were too slow, too cautious, too human. One clipped an asteroid and had to pull back with damage to its wing. Another lost them in the debris and gave up the chase. The rest fell behind one by one, unable to match the alien ship's impossible maneuvers. Within minutes, Daniel had navigated through the entire field and emerged on the other side of the jump gate. The interceptors were still trying to find a safe path through. "Jump gate ahead." Greg called out. "They are trying to shut it down remotely. They will not be fast enough." Daniel activated the ship's jump drive. The crystalline sphere sang with power. Space folded around them. They slipped through the gate just as it powered down behind them. On the other side, they found themselves in the empty space between stars. Sol System was now far behind them. A small bright dot among billions. "We just became fugitives," Linda said quietly. "We just became free." Daniel corrected her. He pulled up the alien route again. It led further into uncharted space, toward a cluster of stars that human surveys had marked as unexplored and possibly dangerous. "And now we follow the path. Wherever it leads." "Think it leads to answers?" Greg asked. Daniel stared at the crystalline sphere which pulsed with what he could only describe as eagerness. "I think it leads to something better. A place where a ship like this is not torn apart for scrap. A place where it belongs. That is a lot of faith to put in an alien computer," Linda observed. "It is not a computer." Daniel stood and walked to the sphere. He placed his hand near the containment field. He could feel warmth radiating from it. Feel something that was almost like awareness, almost like friendship. It is alive. Maybe not in the way we understand life, but it is conscious. It thinks, it feels. And right now it feels hope. The ship hummed in response, a sound that resonated through the hull like a purr. The path ahead grew clearer on the displays, more defined, as if the ship was becoming more confident now that they had committed to following it. "How long until we reach wherever we are going?" Linda asked. The displays showed time calculations, days, maybe weeks. The ship could move faster than human vessels, but even at those speeds, the universe was vast. Long enough to learn more about this ship. Daniel said. Long enough to understand what we have really found. Over the following days, they settled into a routine. Greg spent his time in the engineering sections trying to understand the ship's power systems and propulsion technology. Linda worked on communication arrays trying to find a way to broadcast their story to human space without revealing their location. And Daniel stayed on the bridge learning to communicate with the ship. It was not easy. The ship did not use words. It used feelings, impressions, images that formed in Daniel's mind when he touched the controls or sat in the command chair. Sometimes he would understand what the ship wanted to show him. Other times the meaning slipped away like a dream upon waking. But slowly he began to understand. The ship had been built by a civilization that had moved beyond physical form. They had transcended their bodies and become something else, something made of energy and consciousness. Before they had fully transcended, they had built these ships. Built them as gifts, as teachers for younger species who might one day follow the same path. Each ship was unique. Each one had its own personality, its own way of thinking. This particular ship had chosen to wait in the debris field, had chosen to appear broken and abandoned, because it wanted to be found by someone who would see past the surface, someone who would value it for more than just its technology. "You were testing us," Daniel said aloud while sitting in the command chair late one night. The others were asleep. "You wanted to see if we would choose to understand you or to destroy you." The ship did not answer with words, but Daniel felt a warmth spread through his mind. Approval, confirmation, he Had guessed correctly. How many of you are there? Daniel asked. Images flooded his mind. Dozens of ships, hundreds, maybe thousands, all waiting in different parts of the galaxy. All hoping to find species worthy of their gifts. And where are you taking us? More images. A star system. A planet with cities that were now dark and empty. Other ships floating in orbit. All dormant. All waiting. Your creators. Daniel breathed. You're taking us to where they lived, not lived. The impression that came back was gentle but firm. Transcended. Became. Changed. Daniel leaned back in the chair and stared out at the stars streaming past. Humanity had been searching for signs of alien life for centuries, listening to the void for any signal that they were not alone. And all along there had been these ships waiting, these teachers hoping to guide younger species toward something greater. We are going to change everything, Daniel whispered. When we show them what you really are, when we share what you have taught us, humanity will never be the same. The ship pulsed with warm light and Daniel smiled. Whatever waited for them at the end of this journey, he knew it would be worth it. Even if they never went home, even if they spent the rest of their lives as fugitives, they had found something that mattered more than safety or money or approval. They had found purpose,